All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today's guest is Mr. Benedict Joanis, right? We call him Ben.
That's right.
Yeah. Ben is a father, husband, world traveler, philanthropist, mentor, entrepreneur, developer, and syndicator. He's pretty much to sum it all up. He's a great guy. Came in from Haiti years ago, crushing the game in real estate. And I'm not talking about real estate residential side. I'm talking about real estate investments. And one of the reasons I reached out to Benedict is because we both are of Haitian descent. But Benedict actually came here from Haiti and is crushing the game as we know it. Right. So follow Benedict on Facebook to learn more about what he's doing as the CEO and founder at the Rose Venture Group. Benedict, Ben, thanks for taking the time, man. How have you been?
I've been well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, man,
Thank
definitely. You. Like I was telling you in the beginning, I reached out to you because you're inspired me. I look at your Facebook page and I look at what you're doing, and I look for inspiration, right? So one of the things I'm wondering with you is, with everything going on with COVID, the crisis and everything, how have you been able to, still make it happen during these times?
Well, I mean, I pretty much, COVID took everyone by storm, and it was a very difficult time for everyone involved. So one thing, I mean, I know you brought up the fact that, we're Haitian, and something that's kind of like instilled in our culture is Haitian resiliency. So it is what it is. COVID happened. It is what it is. You got to figure out a way to kind of move past things and adjust and change course. So that's what I did. And thankfully things worked out my way. And I'm happy about that. But it could have easily gone the other way as well. So
yeah,
it's been good in that sense.
Yeah. Well, how have you had to pivot? What were some things that are going on? So you're doing your thing probably during, I guess, February, right? Early March. And then we get hit with COVID. What adjustments have you had to make since, things got restricted and all?
I mean, for one, I had to, really just cut back on a lot as far as my projects are concerned. I mean, I have, right now I'm running about 6-7 projects. And I had to adjust, figure out a way to, make sure I can get everything completed in a timely fashion. COVID set me back time-wise, but they had to get done. So thankfully, the government was able to support business owners with some funds from the COVID-19 relief. So I was able to take advantage of that. I educated myself on that as quickly as I could and see if I can get some of those funds my way to help me continue what I was doing. But yeah, I just stayed abreast of what was going on, didn't really bury myself under the stress of it all, and just kept pushing forward.
Yeah. Were you waking up early in the morning watching the news and up at night, with anxiety and stress, trying to figure out what's what? Not for a second?
No. Again, like I said, it is what it is. Whether rain or shine, I still gotta feed my family, live up to my expectations and fulfill the promises I've made. So I can't be bogged down. Yeah, sure. It's upsetting what's happening. It's frustrating and it's sad, but that's not gonna put food on my table or pay back the investors that I borrowed money from. So that's I can't get sucked into to all that.
Right. Definitely, man. I hear you. That's one of the things I think, another reason I wanted to talk to you too, is because, I'm dealing on the coaching side. I'm working with small business owners. I'm working with, side hustlers and people who are trying to transition and trying to scale. Right. And, what I love is that level of resiliency that you tap on when you think about going through, prior setbacks. Right. And we could say we're Haitian in that it comes from the way that we're brought up, but I think it's also a mindset, right? And whether it was introduced to you at a young age, or it's something that you've always had, or something that you had to just adopt because of the circumstances, it always goes back to that level of resiliency, what you expect for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So you being a guy, I look at you as a venture capitalist, I'd say, right? Because it's that mindset, right? Uh, how many projects do you usually have going on at a time pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, maybe anywhere from 2 to 4.
Okay.
And last year was the first year I thought about, you know what, let me take on more. And opportunities were coming along. I'm like, oh, you know what, I have access to the capital. Why not?
Yeah.
And I thought about scaling my business in one way, where I would take on more of the construction responsibilities. Before, I would just outsource everything. So now this time around, I'm like, well, no, I'm going to get my GC license. Let me proceed in that route. See if I can bring in a bit more control,
Right.
and on that side of things.
Yeah.
But then I quickly realized that, it wasn't a passion of mine, right? I wasn't very good at it.
Yeah.
And I was the first one to admit that to myself versus digging myself in further. I'm like, you know what? Let me just stop the acquisition side. Let me get out of what I got myself into, then kind of refocus on what I'm good at, and outsource all the rest.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question. When you think about this mindset that you have, and you're like, I'm going to get my GC license, I'm going to take on that side. Is it because you're like a micromanager? You got to be in charge of every part, or is it really because you just love to take on new challenges and prove to yourself what you're capable of? That got it.
I live off chat. It's almost like a flaw of mine. Tell me I can't do something, watch me do it.
Nice.
So that's like the biggest motivator for me. So
yeah,
I got to that point where I'd been screwed around by a few contractors, and like, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I'm not gonna quit and say I'm failed because this guy told me I couldn't do it. So use my French, F off. I'll figure something out. Don't worry about it.
Love it. Yeah, because that's real, right? At the end of the day, it's like you can learn a trade, you can learn something, and I think if you have more of an understanding of how it works from the inner parts of it, the inner dynamics of it, you could probably not only prove to yourself that you can do it, you can call bullshit when it's time to call bullshit, right? Like
correct. That's one benefit I say I got from the last 2 years of me just really getting more involved in the construction side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I know is it's not for me. Like, I don't enjoy it. Waking up in the morning, going to Home Depot and all the nonsense, not really my thing.
Right.
But just like you said, I can call bullshit from a mile over an acre. If someone tells me, oh, I'll be there today, I'll be there tomorrow, I don't, drive myself too crazy.
Yeah.
Trying to babysit these guys. I hold them to the word, and the minute you start, fucking up, that's sorry, man, you gotta go.
Yeah. How old were you when you came?
15.
You were 15. So you were in Haiti for a while. Like, you grew up in Haiti. You probably, what part of Haiti?
Yeah, I went to school. Yeah, I went to school. I grew up in Port-au-Prince, so I went to school there. Yeah, I went to school there. So I was 15, but like I guess that the Haitian school system is based off of the French. So I left when I was going into deuxième année.
Second year.
So second year, but they do it backwards, right? So you go from 10, 9, 7,
That's more like a junior in high school.
Correct. But the Haitian system has an extra year.
Okay.
So where here you end at senior, in Haiti, there's also another one they call the philo.
Okay.
Which is like, where you actually go, you have to sit for like this national board exam, similar to the SATs. So I left 3 years prior to that.
Okay. What made you want to leave?
Well, it wasn't really me. It was my parents. I came here because we used to visit all the time for summer vacations, and I would and one summer we came, and my mom just 2 weeks in was like, listen, we're staying.
Yeah.
So and that was that. So that was pretty harsh for me because my dad just had given me a car, and 15, and in Haiti, I guess you could drive earlier.
Right.
So I had my own car, doing well, just started getting to girls and all that stuff. And now you're telling me I gotta go. So that was pretty harsh.
Yeah. Were you always speaking English over there? Or were you like speaking mostly French and Creole?
Well, mostly Creole is a spoken language nationwide. French is learned in school. So it's funny enough, it's the official language of the country, but 85% of the country doesn't speak it. So yeah, it's stupid.
Right.
So it's so asinine.
Yeah.
But that's just the way they have it structured. But I speak French because I learned in school.
Right.
Creole is a language everybody speaks.
Right.
And English, we started learning it by the time I was, let's say, middle school, right? So I had like pen pals in the States that I
Oh,
would talk
cool.
to, stuff like that. So
Nice.
I practice with that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what's great. You know, what's crazy is English is really an easy language to learn. Number one, if you speak another language, English is one of the most
Correct.
easiest languages to learn. So to have somebody to actually communicate with is really cool, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I speak the Creole, but I remember here, you know, what's funny is I never picked up the French for some reason, right?
You
And
won't.
yeah,
You won't. You
it's not
wouldn't because it's not a Haitian culture to speak French.
just yeah, right. And it's more like in formal settings when you don't know the
Correct.
people, right? When you don't really feel comfortable with them just
Hmm.
yet. But once it starts to get comfortable, it just transitions straight to Creole, right?
Correct. That's exactly. I mean, I know when I've visited. I mean, I've been to Paris and I've been to Montreal. It's always, whenever I start speaking, the first thing they notice is like, "Oh, your French is very formal." So
Yeah,
what's that about? Now, telling them, "Oh, I'm from Haiti." Like, oh, that makes sense
yeah, yeah,
because there it's exactly it. French isn't colloquially spoken, so it's not very common unless you live in a family where it was required. But it was, again, like I remember in school, it was required for us to speak French in the yard. So whenever I went to Catholic school, so whenever any of the brothers would be around, we'd
yeah.
like, oh, we'll speak French. But the minute they took off, we'll go back to Creole.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's
So
good because I feel good that I speak the Creole, but I have such people go and they say Jean Jacques is a French name, and I'm like, well, if you knew the history, it's actually not,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
The second thing
correct.
is when you came here. So when I was in school, you know, my father, the Haitian nationalist, he spoke Creole heavy, right? And
Hmm.
he spoke Creole to us in the house, but not a lot of French, like we just said, right? But in the school system, if you spoke a different language, they try to put you in ESL. So
Correct.
when you came here from Haiti, did you wind up going into ESL or no?
I did. Yeah, I did a year in ESL.
Okay.
So essentially, what I did when I moved here, to try to assimilate as quick as I could, I essentially surrounded myself with all English. Like I watched TV, listened to the music, radio. I'll try to answer people back in English whenever they ask me something. My family.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why it accelerated my transition.
Yeah.
Um, and they used to make fun of my accent, man. It was bad.
Yeah.
But then over the years, it kind of went away.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was the biggest thing. I stayed in ESL for because I tested out of sophomore year into
Okay.
straight into the junior year. Then I spent all of junior in ESL. Then senior years, I was in a regular English class.
Yeah. So tell me about like was there a culture shock for you when you came here from Haiti?
Huge,
Yeah. Tell me about that a little
huge,
bit. How
huge.
was that for you?
It was difficult at first because the one thing I remember I noticed the most was the level of disrespect that teachers had with their students.
In what way?
But in Haiti, let's put it this way: in Haiti, if your neighbor catches you doing something wrong, he would whoop your ass,
Yeah.
tell your parents to whoop your ass, and everything's fine.
Yeah. It takes a village mindset.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, what happened? You go to school, your teacher will whoop your ass for doing something wrong. They'll tell your parents. Your parents will whoop your ass when they get back, and neighbor heard about it, whoop your ass if they see you. So so the level of respect was very
Yeah.
instilled, right? If you're
Right.
older than me, you have rights.
Right.
So when I came here, seeing teachers, students talk to teachers back in a certain way, I was
Okay.
kind of like,
Right.
teachers loved me because I was so nice and polite and respectful and raised my
Right.
hand, all that stuff, never talked back. But that was the biggest one. Then you had just overall just different culture, the way, I mean, I went to an all boys school. So being
Oh,
here
okay.
now, I had public school where it was like mixed. So that was weird. Then you had just, all boys school wearing uniforms all day. So
Hmm.
everyone had to say the same thing every day. And here you had like your constant fight as to like, where's the nicest stuff and this, that, the other. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It was very, I mean, from just the level of education too. I mean, when I came here, I was already much further ahead in all my classes than most of my peers were. Not because I was smart, but because of the level of education that's there is very rigid. you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Very disciplined.
Very disciplined, very rigid,
Yeah.
French based, you know,
Yeah.
rote memorization for everything.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that was that.
Okay. So that's crazy, right? Did you have a lot of fights? I had a lot of fights, and I was born here,
No,
so it's like the whole.
no,
No. Yeah.
not
Okay.
for me, man. Everyone stayed away from me. I was a big dude, and I was like a gentle giant. Like,
Yeah.
just leave me alone. I don't involve. I don't get to talk to people. I kind of kept to myself a lot. I mean, granted that people kind of were attracted to me because of how nice I was, but I never really started any fights. You know,
So
like any dispute with anybody. Plus, I was only in high school for 2 years, so they didn't really
got
last long enough for me to get too comfortable.
okay. I think most of my fights were like in elementary, anyways, right? Elementary and junior high, and it was like I think a lot of it came from that whole stigma of being uh, a Haitian student because at the time it was in the '80s and the Haitians had a bad rap at that time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it was like AIDS and anything malaria or anything that had to do with like African. It was
Or
like
voodoo, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we had a really bad rap at that time. It wasn't really cool to be Haitian at that time. But then, okay, so fast forward. What I'm curious about with you is, it is very rigid, and then you have culture behind you from Haiti, and then you also have the mindset of somebody who's going after these challenges, going after uh, risk, pretty much, right?
Mhm.
But with the Haitian culture, you know, our parents, my parents, and a lot of my friends, cousins, aunts, you know, whatever, they encourage you to become a professional, doctor, lawyer, something like that, an engineer, right? You went to school for finance. What were you thinking when?
No,
No, did
no, I didn't. I didn't even go. I went to school for biology. I wanted to be a doctor originally.
so how did you end up in finance?
Just I I realized about halfway through that it wasn't for me. I just like it's not for me. It's not gonna work. So I went to my counselor at the time and told them, and they're like, "No, don't do it. You're so far ahead already. You know, you're gonna take you longer to graduate." I'm like, I don't care. That's not what I want to do. And my parents, and at one point in time, my dad practically disowned me because I thought I wasn't doing that, and I didn't care. I still proceeded, and I basically picked up the curriculum and figured out, all right, so I'm not graduating with a bio degree, and this school is costing about 45 grand a year. So how do I do this to still graduate on time?
Right,
Grabbed the curriculum and figured it out, and ended up with anthropology, knowing full well I had no intention of ever using anthropology for anything.
right,
Just needed a degree, so I
right.
did it, got it done, still graduated on time,
Okay,
and from there I just was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Got a job, like a job through like just a regular job right out of college. But then I got a job through because I played rugby when I was in college, right?
really,
So
okay.
yeah, because I was trying to find ways to use
Tough
network.
guy. Yeah, rugby is no joke. That's not for punks. That's a really yeah.
It's not. It's really not. But I did it mostly for social networking.
Okay.
Because I was finding groups that are like, what are these guys are doing and how are they great? Because I realized early on that it's not so much about what you know, it's about who you know. So I decided, I joined a fraternity, became a rugby player, joined a bunch of different social clubs,
Wow.
trying to figure out these guys are moving on to other things. And
Right.
if I can find a way to connect with them, build rapport, and maybe that could be something I could do, right?
That's
Because I was trying to
incredible.
figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's
So
incredible.
then I used that, I leveraged that. Then after I graduated, I think I went to like a rugby party, met this an alumni who had a job in the city as a it was like in healthcare for a health insurance company.
Mhm.
And I met him. He liked me. He's like, "You want a job there?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" About 2 weeks later, I was working there.
Wow.
Then I realized, "Ooh, that's actually pretty interesting. It actually works."
Mhm.
So then I stayed there, I think, for like 2 years. Then I met another buddy of mine, who's actually still my friend today, a very close friend of mine, actually one of my investors too. He met him again at a party, and he liked me. He's like, "Listen, you want a job in finance? Merrill Lynch is hiring." 2 weeks later, I was working there. That's
Wow.
kind of how I stumbled into these things.
Yeah.
And it's funny because for finance for me was always something I never wanted to do because I was never very good at math growing up. I
Okay.
hated math, but both my parents were accountants. Go figure. Go
Wow.
figure. Both my parents worked for the banks in
Really?
Haiti.
In Haiti?
So yeah. So it's almost like fortuitous that I ended up there.
Yeah. How
You
about
know,
that? Who was pushing the biology on you? Was it your parents or was it like out of curiosity?
mom.
Mom. Oh,
Mom all the way since I was a kid.
yeah.
I'll tell her, she was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I'm like, "An actor or a movie star
Yeah.
or anything but."
Right.
And she would always say, "No, you want to be a doctor. You want to be a doctor." And that kind of stuck. That kind of
Right.
stuck.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. My mom wanted me to be a doctor. My father wanted me to be a lawyer. So
Yeah.
it was back and forth between the two of them. And I
Yeah.
went
You know.
getting into sales. So go figure, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
And that's exactly it.
I got into psychology and then I got into sales because I was like, I can't be a student for life.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, right? Because when I watch those movies, like Michael Douglas movies, or I think there was one with Charlie Sheen way back in the day when I was a kid.
Wall Street, yeah.
Wall Street, right? You don't see too many black guys, man.
No.
And it's not something that you in the culture either. Like it's not in the black community. It's not in the culture. You don't hear a lot of that. But it's not that
No.
it's done. It's not that it hasn't been done. I'm really influenced. I'm heavily influenced by the success of Richard F. Lewis, who was a leveraged buyout guy on Wall Street from Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he came up during the time of segregation as a kid, right? And he was able to accomplish so much. How did you feel as a black man in finance? Did you ever feel marginalized? Did you ever feel underrepresented? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, definitely. I've worked for a few firms, and I'm not going to name anything right now, but
Right.
worked for a few firms. So there were times I felt that exactly that, I was marginalized, that I was definitely underrepresented in the group. But for me, though, I never, how do I put this? It's like, for me, it's always been more like deer in the headlight. I think a lot of it has to do because I grew up in Haiti, so I wasn't as exposed to the racial injustices that maybe you've experienced because you grew up here, right? So for me, it was always like a shock, right? Because I don't pay attention to that.
Right.
Because I'm here, I'm doing something, I'm doing my job until someone else points something out to me. It's like, whoa, well, you've been doing this for how long?
Yeah.
And whoever got passed up before you, So that didn't kind of dawn on me until probably halfway through my career in finance. That's kind of when I started getting really disenfranchised with the whole concept of me staying in that field. And I really started looking into doing something else, right? But yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. You have like the CEO of Wells Fargo, which I recently just said, right, there's not enough. He would love to hire more black people, but there's not enough talented and qualified black people he can hire.
Yeah.
And he got crucified for that comment,
Right.
rightfully so.
Right.
Rightfully so,
Right.
right? But it's just still the reality that field is dealing with, because it's, again, quote unquote, it's a good good old white boys club, right? So, and it was like that for a while. It felt like that. What changes are happening. It's slow and steady, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. No, that's interesting too. I think what's interesting about that is how was Reginald F. Lewis able to do what he did during that time, right? And I recently put up a post on Facebook where he's with his team, and it's the Beatrice Holdings Group, right? That he bought for like $6 million, and his entire team is white. He's the only black guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I don't see it in the culture. I don't see it in our in TV shows that are like black based. You don't see it in like the Cosby Show. You don't see it in like any kind of show that I watched as a kid. You didn't really see finance there. And in those movies that are really like motivating movies like Boiler Room or like Wall Street or even like
Pursuit of Happiness,
yeah, Pursuit of Happiness was a really good one, right? Where you see him go through the struggle, but he still goes for it. So what was it about finance for you that made you say, you know what, I'm done with this and I'm going to go out on my own? Because that's really risky too, right? It's like
it's exactly that, the bureaucracy of it all, right? So it's like it came down to a point where, for me, if I wanted to pursue that dream, I would have to essentially take a step back from my career. I'm already almost 10 years in now.
Yeah.
Go back out again, go get an MBA from ideally prestigious school, which still didn't guarantee me a foot in, but at least I had a shot.
Gotcha.
And I had to basically keep groveling my way through. I would talk to people, just regular folks that were in it, regular white dudes that just had everything else, lined up for them. They were still struggling to get there. And I realized, I'm like, what's the point? I mean, do I really want to struggle that bad? There's got to be other ways.
Right.
Got to be other ways to make money, and that's kind of like, it's funny enough, through the bank, that's when I started running into real estate investors that were doing very well for themselves, and
Got it.
they struggled, but they were, like a better term, captain of their soul, and in complete control of their universe.
Yeah.
So I didn't have. That's where I really. That's kind of like, that's what drove me to it.
Gotcha. No, I think that's what I was looking for, right? Because it's like, how do you make that jump from finance into real estate investments? Now, high risk with real estate investments, super high risk. What specifically attracted you into it to real estate investments, in spite of all?
For me, it was honestly, one was the freedom for sure, because my efforts were completely tied to my results, right? So it's like, with the job 9 to 5, you can sit there and work as hard as you can, give 1,000%. You're still gonna make whatever you were promised when you signed the contract.
Yeah.
In sales, you can make a little bit more, but again, you still are within the realm of whatever your contract said. So if you're making X amount of commission, that's all you're gonna make. Right. So, and next year starts right off again. Very, very few companies out there even offer residuals.
Yeah.
So I kept kind of thinking about it. I'm like, do I want to keep grinding this way, or do I want to build, cash flow?
Yeah.
So for real estate, that kind of like really what I started thinking about, like, how I can literally have one house pays me in perpetuity, essentially, pays my mortgage and pays me in perpetuity. And if I have 5 of them, that's 5 times the income. 10 of them, 10 times. Just simple math. It was 1 + 1 at that point. So then I started talking to guys. One in particular is attorney. I'll never forget him, man. Young guy in his 40s at the time, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm an attorney." I'm like, "But you don't have a lot of clients." He's like, "Yeah, I don't want to be an attorney. I'm only an attorney because my mom wanted me an attorney." He got involved in real estate early on. He bought a whole bunch of buildings in the Bronx when no one else would touch them, and now they're worth millions, and he's happy.
Yeah.
Every month he would come to the bank, make deposits, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand.
Yeah. How'd you get capital to get started? Because that's the hardest part, right? And not everybody is like, not everybody has those opportunities.
Yes and no. Yes and no. In every real estate transaction, there's a few components, right? Capital is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is finding deal. And they don't always need to be together.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was, I didn't have any money, I had more time. Because by then I quit my job. So I'm like, well, if I don't have any money, but if I find a deal, can I find some money? And when I talked to him, yeah, sure, I'll give you money if you find a deal. So I just focused my attention on finding a deal. So, but I would find, I'm not talking deal like, maybe some of the New York deals you used to. I'm talking about like a deal where you're buying a house for 30, 40% of its worth.
Off market, right?
Yeah, off market, of course.
Yeah.
So, and I realized that when I did my first deal, where for just connecting people together, I made like $5 grand, right? And at the time, that was more of a vindication and justification as to why I should pursue this.
Yeah.
Right, because I made $5 grand appear out of thin air.
Right.
By just connecting point A with point B.
Right.
All right. And I was just a middleman making sure it happened. Kind of like in the way an agent does,
sure.
but without all the marketing outlets and resources, right? So that kind of motivated me to say, all right, fine, let me focus on finding more deals. So then I found another one. I found literally that one. I did it 100%. The split was heavily skewed, not my way, right? It ended up being like 90-10.
Dang.
But I didn't care because
Right.
it was experience.
Okay.
Now I did the deal.
Right.
And leveraged that into another deal. So now I had a combination of both experience and I could find deals. So now the money was just.
So how did you
survive? From them.
How did you survive between deals? Like, did you starve? What was it like that for?
Well, it was rough. It was rough, but it was a sacrifice that both myself and my wife made. I got myself sugar mama, so she basically, and I give her credit for that every day.
Yeah.
She had a job where she was earning substantial income, but she was able to basically support me through this. until I can start generating income. So our agreement essentially was she's cash flow, I'm equity. So I go for deals where I can build equity for the family, where I could then say, now if we hold these houses, we'll have passive income coming in plus the equity inside the house if ever we needed it.
Right.
And my goal was it was going to take time. We all knew this,
Yeah.
to generate enough cash flow through these real estate ventures to essentially recreate an income for myself and eventually replace hers.
How important is it for you to have that understanding in your relationship at the beginning? Because I think that's another thing that a lot of people stop and they're like, you know what, we're not on the same page, but they realize it later in life. They don't realize it at the outset of the relationship until something like that happens.
It's hard. It's hard, and it's still hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's still fight constantly about that. You know, it's not like a said and done and it's over with, you know.
Right.
Because real estate is not sexy, it's not fast.
Right.
Right. It's not like the flip shows that you see. You know, sometimes, you know, you lose a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
Or a deal takes longer to close than it should have.
Yeah.
So this is just delays the payout even further. And the payout becomes less because you had to pay a lot more interest in the process.
Yeah. Did you ever get into Entourage, the TV show? Did you ever get into that?
I did, yeah. I did, yeah.
Remember Ari? You remember Ari?
Yeah.
Remember his wife?
I remember Ari.
His wife financed like his whole operation.
Mm-hmm.
And Ari was like an animal,
mm-hmm.
right? But you know, I watched that show, and I coach some people that they are in the same situation, but what it is they don't communicate with their wife, or the other way around. Like the wife doesn't communicate with the husband, and there's like something happens, like you got to file for bankruptcy, or like a car gets repossessed, and it's like, well, that's how the partner finds out, right? So that's reality. That's like real life, right? And people
correct.
They don't think about it or appreciate it, that you have to communicate. Your partner has to they have to know every part of what's going on with your business, because they suffer the losses
equally, yeah.
Like you do, right? Which is crazy. I'm saying that because like for my first year of real estate, I was starting out in rentals, and I had just met my ex-wife, and listen, she's an ex now, because it didn't work out. We didn't have the same vision, you know what I mean? But she carried me that first year, right? She was paying the rent, and she was pregnant with our son, and it was hard. And I can tell you, I felt castrated, man. I felt so emasculated. I was like, dang, I can't provide. And I learned later on that it does take time. It takes time. You have to work together, right? And you got to be on the same page about it for what that long-term goal is going to be for the two of you, right? So it's a beautiful thing when it does work out, but it's rocky. It's very bumpy. It's very rocky.
Even after work, even if it works out, it's still rocky. It's not perfect. It's not Hollywood, stage. Like I told you before, my wife and I, we still fight sometimes about that stuff, and it's hard. It's very hard. So, and one thing I think I'm blessed with is the fact that I'm able to course correct. Along the way, something happens. All right, fine. It's not working. Let's course correct.
Right.
Sometimes I'm a little too eager to course correct, but let's course correct. Let's figure something else out. Let's just keep it moving. All right, trash the whole thing. And start going. And one of my favorite things to say is like, you know what? It's only money, man.
It's only money.
It's only money. You can always make more.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah, but it's to me, it has a lot to do with having an abundance mindset. Like if I keep thinking of lack, then I'm always gonna be in a lack stage where like in every little thing I gotta hold on to, but I can't. My business is investing.
Love it.
If I'm in a stage of lack, I can't take any risk. If I can't take any risk, what the hell am I doing here? I might as well get a job. It's never going to work. So
how transparent are you with her? Like, when you're going through I'm sure you're doing risk management every single day of every minute of every day, right? You're probably looking at over 100 deals, in a month probably, right? So is she part of your risk management planning?
Yes and no. This is kind of like the part of the business where we're figuring out where we'd be best fit. Because sometimes, I find that maybe I can tell her about a deal that where we have to course correct and change the initial criteria, investment criteria. And say, all right, fine, we want to hold this one, we have to flip it because the numbers not working out the way in the beginning. That caused a little rift. Because in her mind, like, we're holding it. So now we're flipping. What the hell? What's going on? I already fell in love with the house. I'm like, and that's something with real estate that you probably know is you cannot fall in love with any house because you just never know.
Yeah, leave your feelings out of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I'm learning now that certain things I can't tell her
Yeah.
until it's done fact.
Right.
Then it's
Right.
like it is matter of fact, this is what we're doing
Right.
versus, this is what we might do, because then she's not in a place where she knows what's going on.
Right.
Um, and it's tough because she's a type A. So very,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, high
Yeah.
strong, direct,
Yeah.
and so because of that, I have to kind of like, be strategic as to what to tell her.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. But okay, so like she's a silent partner, and then you have your team, right? I'm sure like you have to go through risk management with your team as well, right? So what is that?
Correct. Yeah.
How does that work out?
Well, for now, it's just primarily me, right?
Okay,
Because it's primarily me. I make the decisions, then I kind of pass it down to the people I know,
got it.
trusted colleagues and everything else. But right now, I have the office I share right now is with one of my business partners, where we're gonna basically look to do more stuff together.
Okay.
But then that's where like I'm expanding, where it's not just gonna be me anymore. So
Yeah.
now I'm looking more towards the team aspect. So I have a deal. All right, guys, what do we think?
Yeah.
And vice versa. So it's like that's the route that I want to take going forward, because that's what I've learned the last 3 years,
Yeah.
where I've been going really solely by myself. That it's isolating, and it's
Okay.
tough being the one guy making all the decisions.
Yeah, and you get somebody to split the risk with, right? Which is an added bonus, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Definitely, man. So that's another part of it that makes like I'm very high strung with anxiety when it comes to like losing money. So it's like I need
Yeah.
it back as soon as possible, which is why I don't gamble, right? Um,
Correct.
let's just kind of switch a little bit and talk about I'm a big proponent of bridging the wealth gap. Like I'm thinking that's something that needs to happen, and right now is an opportune time to bridge that wealth gap, and it's going to take about 20 years, I'd say. If a generation is about 40 years, we want to collapse that time and try to do it in half the time, right? So part of the reasons why I think getting into real estate investments is a good vehicle to create wealth is because it's a hard asset, right? So when we talk about looking maybe a 5-year hold or a 7-year hold, right? How do you? What kind of advice do you give to people to create wealth, families, blue collar, middle class, working families? What are some steps they could take to start to create some wealth producing opportunities?
Well, me for one would be, this is where like I usually put my financial advisor hat on. This is what I did for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Is to start thinking about multiple streams of income. It doesn't always have to be real estate, although I always tell them real estate's the easiest one. Right? Believe it or not, like
Yeah.
it's the easiest one because it's the one that's, you can be highly leveraged.
Yeah.
Right? If you're buying a stock, you got to bring your own cash. If you're buying real estate, all you got to put is at most is 20%.
Right.
Right, maybe 30% if you're stepping into investment stuff right off the bat.
Right.
So you can start with the house you live in. Say, how do I create income from my property? Buy a multifamily.
Okay.
Up to four. You can get up to 4 units with 3.5% down.
Mhm.
FHA, right? So like that's one thing I really suggest. But others would be like side gig, man. The key is you gotta create multiple streams of income.
Mhm.
Come up with another source of funds, whether it be a gig, doing a side job, or buying dividend stock,
Yeah.
that's going to generate dividend for you every month.
Yeah.
Invest in something versus having your money sit in the bank, because as we both know, inflation erodes the value of your cash.
Right.
So these usually the place I start with folks.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like the problem is, especially in our today's world, like, they want that quick stuff,
Want it now.
quick, instant gratification.
Yeah.
So it's a problem because a lot of times, we have that conversation like, I don't know, owning a house sounds scary, or being a landlord sounds scary. I'm like, well, you don't have to be a landlord. You can
Right.
own real estate through like a real estate fund, right? A
Okay.
REIT.
Like a REIT. Yeah.
Exactly. Buy a REIT if you want to own real estate.
Yeah.
You don't have to physically be the owner of it, but you'll get at least 70% of the returns if through a REIT.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of the conversation I have with folks, to start thinking about, investing and kind of taking advantage of the premise of this economy, right? Capitalism is based on exactly those premises.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me, right, about you and about a lot of people like us Haitians and the Haitian culture, when we come to this country, when Haitians come to this country, they want to become property owners. They want to, aspire for more. I think a handout is like spitting in your face. Like if you have your hand out and you want to be, expecting the government to take care of you, it's like spitting in your face. It's like it's a disrespect because it's
big time.
It's not how they think. So now both of your parents were bankers. Did they ever have any conversations with you about creating wealth or anything like that at all?
Not really, no.
Not
I mean,
really.
it wasn't. They were bankers because it was a job. For me, I think I like nice things.
Okay.
I like to be comfortable.
Yeah.
It's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
So I just basically kept thinking of ways, how can I make myself the most comfortable the quickest way possible?
Yeah. Okay. What do you think parents, what kind of conversations should parents be having with their kids when it comes to money?
I just get away from the stigmas, man. Like, you know what they say, right? Was it politics, religion, and really money are not dinner conversation table? Like, you never talk to them about that. Your parents ask you how much money you make. What are you asking that question for?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a very Haitian thing, like
right.
What do you need to know?
Right.
So I think with my daughter specifically, I don't do that. I'll talk to her. She's only 6, but I'm already starting the conversation with her.
Nice.
To have her understand, what it is to have money, what it is to spend money, the costs, and everything else, and how she can earn it if she wants to. And not just having good grades. I think, to me, it's like, having good grades is, it's like standard.
It just comes with the territory. That's what you expect.
Comes the territory, man. That's what you expect. If you don't have a good life, you better get good grades. I'm not gonna pay you to have good grades. That's a little backwards for me. I'll pay you to do chores, to do extra stuff outside of making your bed and other stuff, right?
Right.
So it's something that we're starting to have a conversation with her about, and she sees myself and my wife. We're both very driven individuals, so she knows already, and we let her be very decisive in herself. Like, what do you want to eat? You tell me what you want to eat, I'll make it. Not so much, this is what I made and this is what you're eating.
Right. Old Haitian way. Yeah.
Correct. So I'm moving away from a lot of that because I don't want her to be stigmatized by it in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So because of that, she's very how do I say this? Very
like independent, free thinking.
Yes. Yeah, at 6, she's very independent. Very, very independent. Decisive. She knows what she wants, and it's it's backfired on me a few times. I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
Especially like 3:00 in the morning when I'm trying to go to bed and she wakes up, Daddy, you have to come with me. This, that, the other. But I want to encourage. But I want to keep encouraging that though, because I want her to be, a leader.
Yeah.
And her own way, whatever she decides to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
what do you think about nepotism? What do you think about that? Should people hire their children to take over their family businesses, or should they not, or not so much?
Yes and no. Depends on what the goal of the business was.
Yeah.
If the business was built to be passed down to the kids, why not?
Okay.
To me, I look at nepotism more as if you're hiring someone who's grossly unqualified for a position, but they're only getting it because they're a family member, that's nepotism.
Gotcha.
But if you have a business, you want to pass it down to your kid, who am I to tell you no?
Right.
Yeah.
It's
your business. Do what you want with it. Now, if you insist on doing it and your kid takes your business, burns your business out to the ground, that's the risk you're willing to take.
Yeah, a lot of businesses with like mom and pops, fathers and sons, like Jimmy's Plumbing and Sons, whatever. It doesn't go past 3 generations, or it doesn't go past 2 generations. We're seeing less and less of that now today, right?
Yeah, because you're forcing your kid into something they want to do, and they're doing it based on, especially a lot of those businesses were immigrant businesses too.
Yeah.
Son inherits it, daughter inherits it, try to keep it going for 1 generation, but after mom and dad died, business goes to whatever, right? So to me, I think it's a self-defeating kind of a approach.
Right.
I look at it more of like, listen, you want to inherit it, great. If you don't, I'm selling it.
Yeah. How about that?
I build it. I wanted to give it to you, but if you don't want it, I'm selling it. I'll give you the cash.
Nice, nice.
That's
Okay.
kind of my plan for my daughter's college fund. Right?
Oh,
'Cause having worked in the industry, I wasn't very big fan of the 529 accounts.
yeah, me and you.
So for my kid, I'm just saying, listen, I'll buy you a house. I'll pay for it.
Yep,
It's gonna have equity in it by the
yep.
time I'm done, and it's gonna have the cash flow sitting waiting for you. When you're ready to go to school, depending on where you want to go,
Yeah,
here's your house. You decide.
there you go.
You can keep it. I teach you. You can keep it, cash it out,
Yeah.
and go to school, or keep it and get loans to go to school. That's
Let's-
on you, man.
Yeah, or start a business or something. Yeah, love it.
Now,
I'm
whatever
on
you
the,
want.
yeah,
Now, whatever you want, but that's yours.
yeah. I'm on the same page. That's what I'm thinking also for my kids, right? Buy them a couple of buildings and put that money in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it, man. Where are you 3 years
Put
from now?
them
5 years from now, where are you? What are you up to?
3 5 years from now, just financially in a better position. Positive cash flow generating every month, enough to support my lifestyle and improve it.
Yeah,
And just for me, growth, constant growth and challenges, man. I'm looking for different ways to challenge myself. Once I have something figured out, I have it down pat, I move on, pass it off to someone else to
right.
manage and then work for me, and I'll move on to something else. I mean, one thing I'm looking at is I'm very comfortable in the money space,
Yeah,
raising money and fundraising. So I'd love to have a fund or I've put some money together to either invest in real estate or in other businesses to help grow them, because then that's another passion of mine, helping people. Like I'm something I'm super passionate about.
yeah,
So helping others while making money in the process. It's
yeah,
kind of like my ultimate dream. So this way I get to have a taste of everything, right? So I can say I don't have to particularly be involved in that real estate transaction in the
right.
day to day, but I can be part of the transition, right? Saying you took this building from what it is today to what it will be tomorrow, and I was a part of that.
Yeah,
Or I helped you build your business, all right, by financing it, and now you're doing insane amount of revenue, and I was part of that,
yeah,
both in helping you grow and also benefiting from it financially. So that's kind of where I see myself going in the future, being more involved in the money side of things.
yeah. Love it. So that's your way of paying it forward, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's play a quick game. We're gonna play a quick game. It's called hands down the lightning round, right? What I'm gonna
Sure.
do is I'm gonna give you 3 topics. Within those 3 topics, you let me know what your bottom line is, right? What your truth is about those topics, your opinion, pretty much, right? Or what's a fact for
Sure.
you. If you don't like the topic, we'll just move on, and you say pass, right? And then we'll move on.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Sure.
All right. First topic. Becoming a real estate investor, do you think it's a good idea to start with a house or a mixed use property?
House.
House, okay. Hands down?
Mixed, hands down. Mixed use. It's a different. I mean, residential is the easiest entry. Like it's the lowest bar of entry. It's the one side where you can make mistakes and they're not going to ruin you. A mixed use property, heavens forbid, let's say you buy a building and has a office, for perfect example, office building at the bottom,
Uh-huh.
or office building at the top, whatever.
Hmm.
And now COVID hits, you can't rent them anymore.
Right.
What are you going to do? And your residential piece wasn't enough to support the commercial piece because you weren't experienced enough to know the difference, that you were supposed to plan for that. Oh, because this bodega was there for years, but Joe or Jose or whatever just
Right.
retired, and his kid didn't want to take over.
Right.
So now you have an empty storefront. Now you got to fill it, and you don't know how to do that.
Right.
Residential, it's super easy to do.
Right.
All you got to do, buy a house, fix it up, rent it out. That's it.
Yeah.
The tenants pay rent, great. The tenants don't pay rent, you evict them. Yes, it comes with its headaches, but it's at least a lot more manageable, a lot more common than mixed use.
Gotcha. Okay.
So start easy and build up.
Gotcha.
That's my approach.
Okay. Love it. Yeah. Less risk, right? More manageable. All right.
Correct.
Second one, you being from Haiti, born and raised, then coming over here, transitioning, and losing your accent and all. Where do you go to vacation? Where would you say, okay, if I give you a choice between Dakar in Africa or somewhere in the Caribbean, where would you want to go vacation?
I mean, I've been to the Caribbean plenty of times, right? But I haven't been to Africa. I'd love to go. So
Mhm.
that would probably rank my choice, just to go to Africa for, to just experience that world. That's one thing I haven't done yet. Been to Europe, been to, been like the Ice Hotel in Canada. Like I've experienced a lot of, like, for me, I'm big on experiences, not just about, going somewhere and laying by a beach for, 10 days.
Right.
Although that's fun in itself, not downing that, but for the most part, I'm more about the experiences. So
Gotcha.
going to Dakar would be interesting to me.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking about it too. I'm like looking it up and watching videos about it. It's really pretty,
Hmm.
man. It's really nice. I want to go there one day.
And a buddy of mine just spent some time. It's actually my best friend from Haiti. We grew up together. He's in the he's a foreign service officer
hmm,
for the United States. He's based first. He went out there. He was actually in Zimbabwe for like 2 years,
wow.
and now he's in Nigeria. And he's been there. He's been trying to get me to go over there, but being now with the 6-year-old
Yeah.
and wife, it's kind of hard to just pick up and go.
Yeah.
So we got to plan that out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm following the news right now in Africa, right? And what they're doing is they're calling Black African Americans back to uh back to Africa, and they're willing to give them
Hmm.
land and just start from scratch, right? Now, some celebrities actually have dual citizenship, like Samuel L. Jackson, Ludacris, and I think there's somebody else who I found out that has citizenship. What is your advice? Should people try to continue to, protest and try to make changes here, Black people, for themselves, or should there be an should they be trying to pursue civil or dual citizenship in any one of the African countries on the African continent?
I'd probably say the latter. Well, both actually, both, because the way I look at it is change takes time, and you got to push against the grain for change to happen. But at the same time, it's a big old world. All we know is here.
Right.
And having grown up in Haiti, I was actually, funny enough, I was actually born here, born in Miami, but I grew up in Haiti.
Oh,
Anyways,
it's
yeah,
like an Akon move because Akon was born in St. Louis and then he moved out to Senegal.
yeah.
So he had to do
That's exactly what that's exactly what my parents did. They wanted me to have the Haitian experience, so they actually raised me in Haiti.
nice.
But so with that, you realize, there's more to the world than what we know here today,
Right.
and experiencing other cultures and other experiences and how the other side lives can actually help make things better here.
Right. Right.
So I'm all for actually both.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to have a cultural identity. That's what's missing.
Hmm.
And as long as, and everybody has, and I'm not saying it like, you need to become racist or whatever it is, but if you can have something that you can relate to, that you can identify with, it gives you a better sense of,
Of the world.
yeah, of the
Hmm.
world view, right?
Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Let's get to your bottom line, my man. What is your bottom line? So your reoccurring truth that no matter what happens, any setback, any trial or tribulation that you might face, this truth brings you right back, serves as rocket fuel for you to propel you forward. What is that for you? What is your bottom line?
My daughter, man, it's really what it is. Like I have a picture of her everywhere on my phone. I'm actually looking at it right now in my office. It's my kid. Everything I do is for her. I want her to have all the things, kind of like the quintessential, father thing, right? So I want to be able to give to her all the things I didn't have, and at the same time show her that there's nothing that can hold her back. You know, um, you know, she's mixed. My wife is white, and she asks me these questions all the time, and I see what's going on in the world and everything else, and I don't ever want her to feel less than because of her complexion. All
Right.
right, so I look at it to me as a challenge for myself to push myself into uncomfortable situations and continue to show her that it doesn't matter if I'm black or white. I could be the CEO of a company. I can do things that, some may feel not able to do because, it's never going to work out because,
Right.
the this, the that, the man, this, that, the other. No,
Right.
fuck that. Doesn't matter. You can make your own path.
Yeah.
If you got to do it, you can make your own path. And that's one thing I remember that really resonated with me with the movie Pursuit of Happiness. And that kind of like stuck with me.
Yeah.
Make your own path. You figure out a way, you make your own path. You figure out a way, you make your own path.
Right.
Haitians were very, like I said earlier, resilient, and I remember that from my dad. For the guys, real man, you got to figure out a way. Always figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not the end. It's not the end. It's not over till you're dead. Figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. I needed to hear that more and more of that. Because that's a good reminder, and it's a reality, man. It's a bite of because reality bites. That's the thing. It bites, it stings, it hurts, but you're okay. You're gonna heal up, right?
Yeah.
And when you heal
as long
up,
as you walk, you got breath in your lungs. You're standing up. You're walking.
Yeah.
You're fine. Keep going, man. Figure it out.
Yeah. Your daughter, huh? That's amazing. Yeah, I have 2 of my own, man, and I hear you, man. I share that passion. Like, and they're mixed too. My ex-wife is white, so it's like at the end of the day, what's really, I think, when I hear about all this racial tension and such, I think about Malcolm X a lot, and I realized that when he was making his pilgrimage to Mecca, that's where he really figured out that everything was about people. It's not so much about black people, white people, whatever. It's about people. It's about unity, right? It's about togetherness. Right. And it sounds utopian. It sounds crazy. It sounds far-fetched, but actually at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is. Right. So
it's always been about.
Yeah. I think you and we share that outlook on life. Right. This was great, man. Where do people find you if you want people to find you? I know you're really busy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm around the Instagram, Facebook, social media is really where I'm more active. I have my website, njlocalhomebuyers.com. I have roseventuregroup.com.
Right.
Really, but mainly Facebook, Insta. I'm around. You have the links. We can put them up. And
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time. It was definitely good, right, to hear your perspective on the world and the real estate game and business as an entrepreneur. This was great. Thanks for taking the time again.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Any last words to the people?
I mean, not to be cliche, man, but stay hungry, man. You got to stay resilient, keep pushing through, whatever it is. It's not the end of the world. Your business could fail, and it's okay. It's like they say, phoenix rise from its ashes. So you got to figure it out, figure something else out. Maybe business is not for you. Go back, get a job, figure it out. But you don't quit. You don't quit. You don't quit. The key is not quitting.
My man, love it, love it. This was the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line.